All right. Good evening, everyone. Please, can you react if you can hear me? Thank you very much, Quinta. All right. So, I won't be taking much of your time. Let's just dive in before I introduce the speaker of tonight. So, for those that joined before the time, we really appreciate your patience. Yeah. All right. I believe you can hear me. Am I audible? Please, can someone react? Am I audible enough? Okay. All right. Please, can someone... Okay, thank you so much, Nazar. All right. Okay, let's just kickstart. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another lightning section. Yeah, hosted by NAIJA-JUG, Naija Java user group. So we're excited to have you developers here with us. I know we have students here, professionals, and also members of the community. We want to sincerely appreciate you for joining this section here in Nigeria and beyond. So for those joining us for the first time, yeah, this is NAIJA-JUG community. It's a platform that focuses on bringing together Java developers to learn, collaborate, share ideas, and grow together. Yeah, and in our community, we have lightning sections, we have monthly sections, DSA, and also bootcamp ongoing. Yeah, so tonight's section will be centered on a very important and practical topic, Spring Data JPA, what your code is actually doing. So we are pleased to have you with us tonight. And also our speaker is now Miss Engineer Awoniyi. Yeah. So I trust him so much. And I believe he's going to deliver well tonight. So as we proceed, you can ask your question at the end of the section. Yeah, question will be welcome then at the end of the section. And you can also share your comments, your thoughts. And most importantly, please enjoy the learning experience. It's very important. It's very important. So from me to everyone here, from me to everyone here, I just want to appreciate everyone for your time tonight and also for the organizers, okay? And I also want to use this opportunity to thank JetBrains. Yeah, they've always been there for us. And if you are new and you've not joined any of our social media handles, we have social handles on LinkedIn, we have WhatsApp community, we have X, we have YouTube, and we also have TikTok. Yeah. So in course of the training, I'll be dropping the links to this platform. So do where to join for future recordings, yeah, and future sections together. So I wanted to use, I just wanted to use like 5 minutes to do that brief introduction. So without wasting much of your time, I want you to help me react with your favorite emoji as we welcome the speaker of tonight's section. I like giving me context. I'm just seeing two reacts. I'm seeing Frank, Quinta, Florence, Samuel, Collins. I'm not seeing your filter. Sorry, your emoji rather. Okay. I want to hear, are you satisfied with this emoji or you still want more to danger you?
It's enough.
All right. So you can have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. What? Thank you very much. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Naija Java user group. It's always been an amazing session, listening to people, learning. Then it's even a humbling one when one is called up to do this. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it. So good evening, everyone. I am Oluwatimilehin Awoniyi. You can just see me, it's fine. And today we'll be talking on having a chit chat, I'd call it. Ideally, please give me a moment to share my screen. Let's get this started. All right. So we'll be having this session. It's going to talk about Spring Data JPA, what your code is actually doing. And this is my second section, all thanks to the Naija Java user group. And the reason why I'm saying that is the first one was about search engines. And if you mention search engine in these modern times, everyone says Elasticsearch and all. But at the same time, Elasticsearch, I remember I talked about Apache Lucene, and Elasticsearch uses Apache Lucene behind the scene, and that's what we talked about then. And now again, this is me talking about what your code is actually doing. That is something like behind the scene, and you might marvel, what is with me and behind the scenes? Well, this is it. So when we all started learning Java, we go to your Java, go to Spring Boot, Spring Security, then you're starting learning connection with the database. Spring Data JPA, that was like the default thing. That's what we all go through, right? Everyone will be like, oh, the next thing for you is this, right? And every now and then I speak with seniors, people who are experienced in the industry, and say, you know what? Yeah, all these old things are all fancy. They are nice to know, yeah, good, modern and all, but in the real world, you might eventually not even see all this, unless you're doing your own side projects, right? Which makes sense. But then when you see businesses that have been established before you were born, or maybe sometime when you were born, you found out that there was a different set of technologies that were used then. And because of the stability of Java, which is a big plus, they had a lot of people are stuck on those. Now, when I mean stuck now, it's not negative. It works for them. It's handling business. It's making money for them. So they are stuck with these technologies and they're like, we like this, we prefer this. And when you go back in time, you find out that, oh, your regular Spring Data JPA was not what is being used, there. Then you join these companies, you're like, okay, you got exposed to the repository or like the code base and you're looking for save all or dot, user repo dot save or delete, the normal Spring Data JPA method, and you're seeing something else. Like, so where is the database? Where is the connection? Where is all this? You're asking these questions, right? So that prompted me, because I experienced that in my place of work, and you know what I'm like, I think it's time to dig down again, go a level down again below the abstraction layer, so you'd have understanding of things. So that's why we're talking on what your code is actually doing. So the expectation piece is you have knowledge of when you're actually using this, you have knowledge of what is happening. And if at all you get to a company and they are using something different, you would not be lost. You can probably map your Spring Data JPA knowledge to what is happening and to what you're seeing. And that could be because eventually Spring Data JPA is just, let's call it a wrapper, a convenient wrapper, right? Around a whole lot of things that, like Hibernate, JDBC, all these old things, it's just a wrapper around it. So eventually when you're seeing those things, in real life code base, you'll be like, oh, you can mentally map it to, oh, so this is what Spring Data JPA does when I use it in my project. Ah, makes sense, that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to do today, just dig deep. And expectedly, the expectation is we should, I mean, a lot of us, we might not be entirely beginner friendly, like, hey, what's a Spring Data JPA? What does it do? Like that, you know, or what are the methods, .save, .delete, save all these things. You know, we are going it, we expect that we know these things. You will find it in any tutorial. But today is just flipping that book, the page. Let's go deeper. What happens behind the scene? So, yeah, so in general saying, every tutorial there is, you know, just extend JPA repository and you're good. And as a matter of fact, it's not even time for the coding section, but why not? Let's do this. Oh, at least we should all be familiar with this. We should all be familiar with this. Something like public interface. This is a repo. Of course, this is your repo. This is our repository, right? This is our repository. So you're familiar with this. You see this annotation out repository. You know, you put it there and all of that. Then you're like public interface user repository extend JPA repository. We're familiar with this. Makes sense, right? Good, great. And that's what almost every tutorial there that is talking about Spring Data JPA does. You know, just extend JPA repository and you're good. And that always works, definitely. Always good. Till, you know, it doesn't work. Till you start seeing issues. Till you launch your app and the series of bugs, red lines you're seeing in the console are something you're not even familiar with. You're just saying database connection, this, that, this, and you just don't understand. Of course, the next thing is just go to probably ChatGPT, Stack Overflow and all, but you know, you escape that one. But today we are going to really go deep into it. We're really going to go deep into what's happening behind the scene. Let's look at this chart for a moment. Look at this chart. This is your code, your application code on top, and it sits on Spring Data JPA. Yeah, our normal thing. And then Hibernate is sitting, Spring Data JPA is sitting on Hibernate. And then you look at like, oh, I thought Spring Data JPA is the ORM. Well, no, Hibernate is a ORM. Spring Data JPA is a wrapper around it, basically. So Spring Data JPA is not actually the ORM. Hibernate is. And Spring Data JPA is a layer on top of that. And that gives you, you know, these nice repository interface, and you derive some query and some annotations on these things. You get these your .save, .delete, .these all over. Hibernate is working behind the scene. Then Hibernate in turn turns to JDBC. Then JDBC in turn talks to the database. Right. And well, what do these all do? Just so we have, let me just give us a mental model. So your code is your code. What you write, of course, you write user repository dot find by ID, right? Find by ID. Then Spring Data JPA, it generates that repository implementations, right? And of course, goes to Hibernate. Hibernate is the real engine. It's one that tracks the entity, the user entity. It's one that performs the dirty check-in. It performs, you know, it generates the SQL. Select, you know, of course, if you're familiar with SQL, we should all be familiar with SQL. I mean, what am I saying? You get that, select asterisk or select all, something like that. Select asterisk from user, you know, the user table. So it's Hibernate that generates that. Then it gives JDBC to execute the SQL. You know, then that one goes takes it to the database. You know, of course, there's something between JDBC and database, which is the database, the DB driver, but that's just a connection, just sit as a wire, something like that, between JDBC and database. And database does the whole thing, returns whatever you want to return back, stores your data and all. So behind the scene, basically, Spring intercepts your repository call. Now it delegates it to let's open this. Let's open our code, for instance. It delegates it to, let's search for simple JPA repository. JPA. repository. Please find it. It's important to find it tonight. Sorry, that's taking time to load. But ideally, while that is going on, Spring intercepts this call, delegate it to Spring JPA repository. So this is part of your when you nice, thank you. That's donuts. Great. This is the behind the scene, and these are the fantastic authors who did this. Good. This is simple JPA repository, right? Implements JPA repository implementation, right? So anytime you anytime you make a call, maybe user repository just save user or find by ID, Spring intercepts that repository call. It uses this behind the scene, simple JPA repository. And that's where we can actually find a whole lot of things. You can see delete by ID here. You can see delete here. All those things you're saying, you can delete all by ID in batch. Some things you've not even used, right? Delete all. Well, I hope we don't clear the database. Yeah, things like that. Find by ID. You can see that here, right? Now, let us search for particularly for save. Save. This is save. This is when you say user repository dot save, and let me say, what do we have an implementation here? Think we do. Okay, we have find by ID. Oh, this is it. This particularly. It says repository dot save. Just save maybe a user. This is what is being used. It takes an entity, right? It takes an entity. So this one, Spring simple JPA repository in turn delegates to or calls, let's say calls entity manager. This is entity manager. You see, all these things are behind the scene. This is what happens behind the scene. So this save, the save itself, which is under, of course, under the class simple JPA repository, uses entity manager to either persist or merge. What is persist? What is merge? Let's quickly divert. Persist. Where is it coming from? Well, persist means saving something. We'll get to where it's coming from. Just a moment. That's what the next we're going to. It's like saving something. While merge is adding to something. So persist is probably that thing doesn't exist before, right? So let's read this code. We can all read code, right? Can't we? Nice. So behind the scene, you have assert. This is like a test. Assert not null. This entity, hope it's not null. Entity must not be null, which makes sense. That's where you get your errors, right? Let us see what this error is even saying. I think it's, yeah, entity must not be null. Simple, right? Now, if it's not null, what does it do? It comes to this if statement, takes the information is new. This is a Boolean. This is new. Entity information checks is new. If it is new, if the entity is a new entity, that is, it's not existing in a database, or it has not, let us bring database to it. It does not exist in a context. Let's just call in a container. Let's do that. It says, you know what? Entity manager persists this entity. Save this person. Let's just use database. Let me save myself the issue stress. I want to take us down a flow gradually. So persist this entity and return the entity. Then that's when you say, oh, your user has been saved. Else, that is, if this entity is not new, you are probably making an update. That's why your SQL. So SQL for this persist, you probably, just create a new, let's add a new, insert a new entity, a new user in the database. So you insert this with the values, this in this database. While merge, if it's not new, merge with do update this user, blah, 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 something, where probably ID something or something like that. That's what the SQL will generate out for you. So this is behind the scene. This is what is happening, right? This is all behind the scene. And this is where you see save all. I'm sure some of us use save all to do some batch things or so like that. And what does it do? It results is an array list. It's all simple. All these things are not hard. That's why behind the scene is always interesting. I found out it's interesting recently. Just dig deep. Any abstraction, and Java is full of abstractions, Spring especially. Just dig down. Just take it. Just go. What's happening behind the scene? It's always interesting. So this is just using a for loop, your save all, for loop in a list, add, save, it's calling the same save on each and every one of them, the save up here that we just checked, return the result. That's all. It's all fun. It's all fun. Yeah. So that's what happens behind the scene. Now we go back to our slide in a minute. And now this behind the scene, there is something called, I was saying, don't let us use database yet. Don't let us use the word database, let's use something else. A container. That container, let's assume it to be, it's not even an assumption, the name is persistence context. What is persistence context? So I'm going to give us all a quick, not quick, a story, not really a story, an analogy. It goes this way. So every one of us here, imagine you are a manager of, let's call it a factory, or a company, whatever. I don't want us to be a toxic manager, but whatever it is. Imagine you're a manager with a notepad, a book and pen, if you will. You walk into the office in the morning, your day-to-day work has started. Excuse me. You walk into the office, that means the work for that day has started. Right? The work for that day has started. In the day, don't let me use database. Don't let me just mention database right now. So your day-to-day work has started. Now, as the day goes on, employees come to you with updates. For example, someone comes and say, hey, my name changed from Samuel to Gloria. Okay, you say, okay. Another one comes and say, hey, I moved to a new apartment today. Or there's no apartment, maybe departments today. Now, all these updates they are giving you, someone comes, hey, I'm injured. Hey, my phone is missing. They are telling you all this. You write all of these down on your notepad. Now, the issue is this. You are probably having 1,000 persons. You have 1,000 workers. And of course, we can estimate the amount of those that will come to meet you in a day. It could even be more than 1,000 meetings or telling you some things. Hey, I did this. Hey, I did that. Hey, I did this. Right? Ideally, you should, the moment you're told, you should go tell the HR, hey, this person changed their name. Hi, this person misplaced their phone. Hey, this person changed their department. But you don't want to go and come every now and then. So what do? You take your notepad, you keep writing all these things down. Now, you just note it down and keep working, basically. At the end of the day, you walk to the HR and submit everything on your notepad as one batch of official updates. Hey, this is everything today. And when you leave the office, of course, you tear out that notepad because HR has used what they needed. Your paper is now, well, redundant and not needed. You can tear it and throw it off. Tomorrow is another day. How does this have to do with persistence context? Fine. So persistence context basically is what the entity, let's call it, it's like a container, and the entity manager we saw in the code there behind the scene is like a door to that container. So what does it do? Anytime you as a manager of this office or something like that comes in to office and you start your day-to-day work, a transaction has started. And you know what transaction is in Java, right? You know why we use it as an annotation transaction. So a transaction has started. When they say, hey, my name changed to something, so that means in your code, you're probably doing something like, do I have something like that here? Yeah, so new user, good, the transaction has started. Set name, right? You're setting the name. In fact, actually, let's use this on demo flush. So find by ID. You find someone by ID, user, a transaction has started. You have started something. Set name to something. You are committing something down into your notepad. Meant to do flush, or you're giving the HR. Your transaction has ended. All these things are happening in the context, in the persistence context. They are not yet in your DB. So it's like an in-memory something that is holding things down. That's what persistent context is, right? So everything you do, hibernate is a unit of work, and it lives for the duration of a transaction. So you load an entity, find by ID, whatever, it becomes something you're managing at that point. And because hibernate has a memory, or the persistence context has a memory of, oh, I've seen this thing before. The name was initially Timmy or Samuel in our case. It keeps the original snapshot. And the moment you change it to Gloria, it does a dirty check-in. Oh, the name has changed. It writes a USQL update, blah, 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 where name is, or where ID is this one, name is now Gloria, that kind of thing. The moment you flush it, transaction is committed, everything is ended, right? Now, how does persistent context manage all these things? Well, it has different phases. And you can check this in Hibernate's documentation. This is persistent context, for example, right? This persistent context. It has a transient mode, let's call it a mode, managed or persistent, detached, and removed. That's what we have in this slide here. Transient, managed, detached, removed. When you say a new user, initialize a new user, Hibernate does not know anything about it. It's not in the persistent context yet. You just define an object. New user equal, or user equals new user. Not yet in the context. The moment it comes to this thing is either probably you're fetching an existing user. Hello? Can anyone hear me? Or someone's trying to say something?
No, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So the moment you load managed, for example, let's come back here. Let's use live code. Aha. I created a new user here. This person is not in any Hibernate or database or persistent context right now. Your database doesn't know what's happening. You're setting this, you're setting that, you're setting the email, whatever. The moment you do repository.save, Hibernate comes in. Like, oh, okay. They are telling me to manage this person. That's where manage comes in. You're managing. That's where this managed, that's where the context comes in. And by the time you're done, it's detached. And of course, remove is like removing it from the database, that's if eventually you get here, remove. And if you see here, it says transient, the entity has just been instantiated and is not associated with a persistent context. It has no persistent representation in the database, and typically no identifier value has been assigned. Basically, just created an object, as in your heap or stack or whatever. Managed, the entity has an associated identifier and is associated with a persistent context. What does that mean? In code level or in code parlance, when I say user UI equals repository find by ID, you have brought in Hibernate, you've brought in persistent context. This thing is currently being managed. It's like, oh, a transaction is opened or a window is opened. You as a manager, you have your notepad, you have written something down, you're waiting. You're waiting, basically, right? Same thing here in this last part. With this essence of this code, in fact, they are just multi-performing their task now. They are not, this is not what I intended there for, but yeah, they are good things for explaining this. This particular code, this one, where I am, what the method is demo flush. What it means, first of all, the first thing it's doing is even bringing in Hibernate. It's saying repository find by ID. That is already touching the database. Hibernate is aware. Persistent context is aware. Anything you do within this moment you found it or you searched it and say you flushed it, for example, anything you do is just a notebook being opened and it's being written. You say user.search or set name. You're probably doing update an SQL update query. That's what Hibernate is doing. That is it. Here, you can see it did a select X or from a user where ID equals whatever. You can assume that's what it's doing when it did this. Of course, that's what it's doing actually. So the database is active. All these processes are being managed. They are in the managed phase, as we see here. Manage or persistent phase. Now the touch, the entity as an associated identifier. Yeah, we remember the name is now Gloria, fine. But it's no longer associated with the persistent context because, okay, we are done. It's been evicted. And of course, remove is sometimes, you're deleting something from the database, basically. So all this is why I'm using all these methods and all. This is what's being done behind the scene for you. All your queries, every transaction goes through this, at least goes through them, basically. Every transaction in a database, it goes through them, right? So that is the essence of the persistent context, basically. So once again, mapping it back to JPA, you are the manager, Hibernate, that's Hibernate. Hibernate is the manager. Employees on your notepad, that's the entities, user, find user by ID, or change this user's name, all those, one of those things, right? You're writing something down, that is you loading an entity from the database or doing something concerning a database, right? Submitting to HR at the end of the day, like, oh, I'm done. It's flush. And yeah, flush is not a bad thing. I mean, what's this flush again? Please permit me. Flush. Yeah, flushing. Flushing should be exactly writing to the DB eventually, like submitting to the DB. So yes, flushing is the process of synchronizing the state of the persistent context with the underlying database. You remember we said you have a notepad and you're writing things. Eventually, when you are done and you submit to the HR, hey, I'm done for the day. These are the activities that happen. That is you flushing all the process, synchronizing your state of the persistent context, which is your notepad now, to the database, which is the HR. Right? So, and okay, we can read more. The persistent context acts as a transactional right behind cage. If you're familiar with caching and all, right behind, right through this and that. Yeah, something like that. And the flush operation takes every entity state change and translates it to an insert, update, or delete statement. These are things that mutate the database, basically. When you're reading a database, nothing, you're just fetching the data. That's a read query. But insert, update, delete, they mutate the DB. And so every time an operation happens, insert means you're adding a new user or a new user logged in into your, signed up into your application. You insert the person in the DB. Update, or the person is changing their Gmail or an information. Yeah, that's an update. Delete, they are tired of your app and they are leaving your app. Every now and then that these operations are done, a flush is done. A flush is always done. And of course, you can configure all this. You can configure it, flush before every query, auto, which is default mode, commit, blah, 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 blah. You can read more on this. I think I should just drop these. Sorry, I love doing the behind the scenes a lot. I should drop this. Yep. In a minute. Nice. Okay, next. Well, next thing, all these things are looking, they might look scattered. Oh, we are jumping to this one because we're doing the behind the scene. It's when you're working and doing things on your own, you start connecting the dots. Basically, you start connecting the dots one by one, one by one. And I hope and pray it makes sense. For you, it makes a whole lot of sense. So, what JPA repository really is, I think one way or the other we've talked about this. All right. Yeah, in fact, we have, basically. So JPA repository is an interface, right? You never write the implementation. Why? Because, well, you always say, and note something. When you go to user repository and you do command or control, you click this, it takes you to somewhere else. I mean, you're reading more about the interface, like the source, right? and you don't see any of these simple JPA repository I just said. You don't see, because this is a class. This is a class, man. Like, it's not like it's in, implementing or whatever. Is the class, and it's not a sub. It's not extending anything. It's part of the Spring Data JPA jar file, a Spring Common jar file, something like that. And of course, wait, let's see the source again. Right. Dot M2, yeah, of course, repository Spring Data JPA. Oh, okay. I can't scroll through all this, but of course, it is when you do your where's my POM file? Where's my POM file? Basically, I'm just trying to show where. Yeah. So when you have your POM file and you bring in your Spring Data JPA, blah blah, it's part of the classes that come with it. You know, this Spring, a simple JPA repository, right? But that's what JPA Spring basically. The moment you do anything, you're calling anything here. Spring basically it just catch that stuff, that your method, and uses this one behind this and instead. Now to think about it, I'm sorry, this I might be wrong on this. I'm trying to think about it. Maybe if it's catching your method, is that not using aspect-oriented programming, annotations and all? When you dig deep, you see this is the thing. This is the fun about digging deep. You start thinking, is this what he uses behind the scene? Is that what he uses? Till one day you get to computer, the code, the machine level, you're saying ones and zeros. You dig deep and hopefully you stop by then. But then when you dig deep and things and go down, things become fascinating and interesting. You find out, so this is where they do this is how they use that. All these annotations, can you write your own annotation? And this particularly now, no repository business. Probably, I think this is an aspect and all like that. These things become more interesting. And you're not just you're not just, how do I put it? You're like an engineer now, you're questioning things, right? So basically, back to this stuff. Spring JPA repository, right? It uses simple JPA repository behind the scene. And you can see if you click, I came here, I clicked here, and it took me to this place. See, it's just an interface. It has flush, it has save and flush. Let me see. Does Spring simple JPA save and flush too? It has save and flush. It has, basically, right? So it's just an interface, and it's just an abstraction over all this JPA repository, just an abstraction over it. And you see, just an interface here, basically. But this is the real deal. This itself is the code itself, right? This itself is a code. And see, very simple. We have save here as a method. We have flush somewhere as a method. Now we have save and flush. You expect that, okay, what would it do? It calls save, and it should call flush. And basically that's what it's doing. It saves an entity, then it flushes it. Then this should prove to you that those that wrote this code, I think the authors are up above. They don't have 3 heads. Okay, 2 heads. No one has 2 heads, basically. Ideally, so sorry if I'm making assumptions. Where are the authors? I thought I found them here. Yeah, these are the authors. They don't have 2 heads. Their names are just 2. Which one of them? None of them have 3 names. Oh, except from this guy. Ernst Jan van der Laan. Sorry, guy. Every other person has 2 names. You have 2 names or more. You can write these things. You can probably contribute. You can probably just contribute. That's just the bottom line of this. This method, save and flush, is a combination of save and flush. That's it. And when you go to flush, like, what's flush doing? Entity manager.flush. You can then go deep to entity manager. What is entity manager? Let's go down. Why not? Why not? You see, it has persist. I told you about. It came up. I told you about persist. You persist something, you merge. Merge is basically, do we have this in the database? If we have, merge it, update. That's an SQL of this stuff. If we don't have it before, persist it is a new stuff. This is remove, this is your delete. Basically, maybe find by whatever. You see, entity class, primary key, find. How do I put it? It's an interesting rabbit hole. Like, it's an interesting, I'm sure I've used lock. Some of us should have used lock before. Right, maybe a pessimistic lock and all this lock type, and all these things. Refresh. it's interesting. You find out you can actually see the source code of things and like, oh, really? Contains. I've used contains before, right? I mean, yeah, you can just really do things like create the native query, create native query and all, right? So basically, these are the behind the scenes of JPA. And you find out that it's not that hard. You can go ahead and write your own. You can, yeah, right. Because sometimes when you get the bottom line of things, you just become glad that, oh, so this is it. It's not hard. I mean, yeah, of course, it took years to come to this level when you are reading it in a glimpse, but you can do it basically, and that's what makes programming or makes these things interesting, right? So, last thing you're saying, yeah, you say simple JPA repository is a real class in Spring. Oh, thank God, they helped me out. Spring Data Commons.jar. And yeah, I think why don't you let us try something? I love trying something. Do I know where Spring Data Commons is? If I knew where Spring Data Commons is, we could just write jar. Is it FX now or XF? I really can't remember. And Spring Data Commons.jar. You should bring out the source code. Oh, that will not work. That will not. I'm not in that folder. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is. I don't have time. No, I don't have time. We could dig deep, go down, keep going down. Okay, that code basically, this code I was about to do takes a jar file and decrypts it. You know, when you zip a folder, that's .zip. For our Java, it is .jar. The source is jar. So basically, you can reverse it and check what is the source code itself. It's all fun. So you break something, of course. So everything you call, it says everything you call ultimately it's entity manager under the hood. Eventually, everything you do, everything you call it's entity manager, and this is our entity manager here. And it's just an interface under the hood, right? And it becomes more fun. And so that is that basically. You see, this is just all introductory, right? Is a dig into what happens behind the scene, right? Right. So yeah, we saw this code in simple JPA repositories in the source code. Basically, what does it do? When you call save, I hope you know when you do save, of course we all know when you do save on JPA, on your normal JPA, you use it for maybe saving a new entity or saving, you know, like updating a new entity, an existing entity, of course. So this is what the code does. You know, we've ever till the moment of digging deep, I never really wondered why are we using save for saving and updating? Why not .update or something like that? Or so, or does it even exist? I don't even know. Oh god, that's it. We need to dig deep more, right? Okay, get by ID, get one, get these. I don't think it's updates. It's just all save, always save. And what does Spring repository, Spring simple JPA repository says about save? We've been here. This is very introductory. Like I said, is it a new entity? If it is, persist in the database. If it's not a new one, update it. That's a merge, basically merge. And you see entity manager dot merge. And when you go to entity manager interface, you will see merge. Of course, we've seen merge. Anybody have not seen merge? Search for merge for you. Merge. Basically, this is it. What does it do? Merge the state of a given entity into the current persistent context. And by the time you are done merging in the persistent context and you flush, it saves in the database. Simple. It's logical. It makes sense. It's interesting, right? It's interesting. Yeah. And then lastly, or second to the last, lastly, basically, queries. Why am I talking about queries? Yeah, a lot of us just use find by email and status, find by this, find by ID, find by. Ultimately, eventually, all these things are broken down, let me put it that way, by Spring, by, of course, Spring, Java, Spring, right? It takes you say find by email and status. Find by email and status. Basically that I can suddenly hear myself. Hello? Okay, I think it's better. I think it's better. So behind the scene of all your find by whatever, Spring takes this. Spring uses the the class. Okay, you will definitely understand this. This is user.java. This is user.java. We have just ID, name, email. And we can say find by ID and email. Spring, when you write down your own, when you construct your own, they call it now, user, your own method, basically. You're like, find by ID and email and what do we have again? Name. And you're passing all those things. You're passing the ID, the email, the name, and all this stuff. What Spring does is, okay, it removes this find by ID. Because you know what it means. Oh, you're find by ID translates immediately to sorry, I'm breaking all these because that's what we do as developers. We break things. Select asterisk from, of course, our user data table or something, maybe user table or table user, whatever. By ID, of course, you can start thinking, oh, this ID, this email, and this name are not in relation to how your database column is. Okay, once again, find by ID, the ID, the name, the email, all these things you are conjuring yourself and creating yourself. It's not looking at how the column of your database is, maybe the column ID, the column name. It's looking at the field of your class. Because that's what it's relating to. That's what Hibernate is relating to currently, your class, of course, the entity manager, right? So it uses that, checks this, and of course, you can already imagine what it's writing, where this will be something like where ID equals blah, blah, where email and where email equals this. Well, all this translates behind the scene to SQL query. And when you run it, of course, database gets you something, basically. So it uses the custom, the field of your class, not the column of your database, or how you see that. You know, you can eventually save, you can have, where's that class? You can have a field email, and the way you're saving it in the DB is the name of you're saving the colon is something else. You can say name instead of email. You can say mail. And when you get to the DB, that name, the column name will be mail, something like that. So when you're now writing your custom thing, your query, you don't write mail. You write email, because that's what it's being used. That's what it's being searched for, basically. So that's the essence of our query came into this place. So, now fine. So Spring reads the method name at application startup, not at runtime. And one of the benefits of this is failing fast. It reads the method name at application startup. All those things you're find by whatever. If something does not make sense, it just fails. It does not run the app, start it, and the user tries to log in production, then runtime and all of it. Not from the application startup, right? So it gets all these things. It now generates a JPQL. A JPQL selects you from user where your name is this and status is this, blah 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 blah. And exactly what I said here. If you fail, if you make a typo, how did I write it? If you typo it, if you make a typo in the field name, you get a repository exception on startup. It fails fast, ASAP. It's a blah blah blah. Then of course you should know how to read, error messages to know where you've messed up, right? So of course, aside from your derived queries, of course, derived queries, maybe Spring deriving it from how you've written your method name. You can also write your own custom stuffs, which makes sense, right? You can use, see this one, for example, list users, find by a name containing ignore case. You can explore, of course, within the context of the documentation when you read it. Then JPQL, because query, you can write your own query, right? I do this a lot. Nice, and it's still entity based. It is entity. When I mean entity based, it is looking at the field of your entity, not table based, or not how you've named your colon in the database, right? Then of course native SQL. Native SQL. Yeah, I wrote this because I found out something used sparingly bypasses ORM validation. And what does this mean? Native SQL, I think from my research, which, pardon me, I'm going to make more because, of course, I'm still digging deep. It's deep. It's a big, huge rabbit hole. So my assumption is this native query, when you use native SQL and native query, I think it checks your database, right? Probably it uses the colons or things from the database. So it bypasses ORM validation, and ORM validation like object relational mapper that, is this field is created at in the field of the class? Is it a field in this class, in this POJO or plain old Java object? So I think it bypasses that. So you have to use, if you know what you're doing, basically. These are the kind of things I saw in our code base, and I'm like, okay, still searching and digging deep, basically. So, I was going to do a quick demo, but the demo, we've practically visited the stuff. I barely see the point of running an application now to do this. But basically, before I say we can also still go deep into the code. Basically, persistence context. Just to recap what we know, persistent context is an in-memory, like an Hibernate in-memory that tracks everything you do before you flush or something, before it leaves the context. And of course, JPA repository, anytime you now use your JPA repository, remember, it's just an interface. And the implementation is simple JPA repository that wraps around entity manager, which in turn opens a persistence context, which in turn speaks to JDBC. It generates the SQL, which in turn speaks to JDBC, which in turn speaks to the database, which in turn returns your data, basically, right? So next time when you use user repository or product repository.save, remember that it persists, it checks that entity, it tries to persist, is this person a new product? If it is, it uses entity manager.persist method. The method, in entity manager persist. If it's not, it's using merge behind the scene. So if something is even breaking, you would be able to know with the knowledge of what I know about behind the scene of Spring Data JPA, where could this be coming from? It's just that easy, right? Now, dirty checking. This in itself, there is an issue. Let me show you something. Let me show you a magic. So in case anyone has not made that mistake in there, and that's what we used to wrap up. Made that mistake in their code base. Right. Exactly. So it is not only when for example, we created a new user. Our database Hibernate doesn't know anything about it yet. It's just in an object. We set a name, it's still an object. We do this, it's still an object. The moment you do repository.save, persistence context is now aware of this. Hibernate is aware of this. Your database is aware of this. Makes sense, right? Now, you would, in your head, assume that, anytime we use .save, that's when things are saved, that's when things are committed to the DB. Partly true, partly tricky. .save commit, fine, they can go through and do your commit, right? But you can still get information into your database without using the save, especially when you are updating something. And what do I mean? Look at this, and it's called dirty checking. Dirty checking, once again, you're a manager. Somebody says, my name is this, is now changed from A to B. Basically, you have written an SQL, update this user where ID equals this, value A is now equal to B or something. That is what's happening here. That's dirty checking. Yeah, because eventually, when they go to check database for that kind of scenario, they will not see the person's new name there. But ideally, the person that said, I have changed my name, and it is with you, the persistence context, that, yeah, this person said they changed their name. But when you go to DB, it's not yet there. But something is, if you go on, if your application goes on, eventually it gets saved into the database without you calling repository.save. I don't know if anyone is confused about that. For example, this code, you fetch the user. You fetch the user, right, by your ID. Their name initially was, let's say, John. You do user.setName to Alice. Do you know we've not done, ideally you will do user, you will do repository, that's what we all do, dot save user, right? To think, oh yeah, I've saved it. Without this code, this person can still get saved. Basically, because persistent context is like, this person told me, yeah, at this particular line 29, update user where this, that. So I'm filling my SQL code right now. It's running out of my head. Query, I could have written that clearly. But an SQL script has been generated here already, and it has changed the person's name, but it has not committed. Those that are familiar with database, roll back, commit. When you roll back, you can still roll back before you commit, but the moment you commit, you can't roll back anymore. The data is done. That's ACID in database DBA. So in this scenario, this person literally is saved. Now I think let's this will be the last one, I promise. This is the last thing. Because my time is up, let me just remove all this and test this. Yeah, let me just remove this. Our demo service. So this is seed. User, so okay, demo runner, we're using a demo runner, seed. Demo data checking. Good. So I'm making these two methods available, seed and demo data checking. Ideally, when we do seed, we say initialize a new user, set the name to initial, then .set email to be whatever it is, right? I think I will comment this out so that we'll see it live. Let me run this, run application. Where do I get these? Have I initialized the H2 database? I think I have. Please don't fail. This is not a point of failure. Okay. Okay. Tomcats, web server coming up. The carry, nice. You create a user database, fine, makes sense. We should see insert soon. Yeah. Okay, checks the count. We should see insert. Yeah, insert. This, you see, Hibernate, it turned it to SQL. It turned your this to SQL. This line, this basically this, no, seed. Yeah, this save. It's inserting because this person does not exist before. It's persisting the person. So insert the user where ID is blah, 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 blah. You see, it has inserted this person. Name is initial. ID is this. I think I have the database run. Do I? Okay, run this. Continue, just. Oh, God. Disconnect. I think we should be on track. Select as from user. Okay. From users, please. Okay. Run. Users, info, I think we have an ID. Yeah, so we have this person. Number one, the example, I think, yeah, this is it. Let me expand my screen here. So this is the name initial. Let's see what happens when we do, let's activate demo checking. Okay, what does it do? Basically, it changes, it should fetch someone and update the name from initial, should update from initial to hard disk. So help us God. If you see the SQL query, in fact, yeah. Okay. And yeah. No profile, of course. Sharing, found on GPA. Okay, what do we have here? Created the user base, the database. Thank you. He looked for something. Yeah, select count. I think we are doing this. Where are we getting? Oh, repository.count. If well, I guess fine. So he created a user, set their name to initial, set their email. Of course, that's seed. That's what seed method is doing. Now let's see if there's one run. We find someone, update. Can you see? You see I wrote update user here. He updates a user. Now their name is now, their email is the example is Alice is one. Let's see what happens. I think there's something called refresh. Can you do that for me? No, please. Connect. Just do it. Okay. You see, now the name is no more initial, it is Alice. And in the, we never said it should save. We never said it should save. We just set the name and that was all. So all these tricks and all, by the time you know when data is becoming inconsistent, you would know where to change words, where to trace words, what's happening behind the scene, because somebody has said you should be aware of Spring Data JPA behind the scene. So that's basically the end of this introductory. I didn't want it to be very technical. I was looking for a way to make it relatable, you know, something like if-else statements, and I hope I did that. I hope you got something. I hope it challenges you to dig deep. After every abstraction you get, just go on one leg deeper. You'll be better than even other person that are just using it. And if you find out that out of 1 million persons, 300,000 people had gone an abstraction level deeper, go another one. Go another one till you get to the machine level and start saying assembly. Yeah, and you feel on top of the world and you question yourself, why did I even do all this? But regardless, it's fun. It's fun. So that is the end, basically. That is the end of this session. It's very introductory. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Awoniyi. I said it earlier that I believe you, and you did wonderfully well. So please, do you have any questions? Please, let's appreciate him with our favorite emoji. Yeah. Thank you very much. So please, do you have any question for him? Any question? You can identify by raising your virtual hand. I wasn't expecting any either. All right. So I'm seeing some new persons on the call. Okay, Teresa left. Please, if you're on the call and you don't have access to any of our social handles, you can as well signify so we can reshare. Okay, that's fine. All right, thank you very much, Awoniyi. Yeah, thank you for taking out your time to explicitly explain all we needed to know tonight. So I want to use this medium to thank everyone that joined, even those that joined 15 minutes before the time. Florence, thank you very much for your patience. And Chibweze, yeah, thank you very much for your patience. So on Saturday, we're having a section. We just wrapped up Spring JPA. On Saturday, we're talking about Spring from beginners levels to pro, yeah. And we're expecting a very big fish on Saturday in the person of Mr. Ready, I guess. He's a JetBrain advocate, yeah. So on Saturday, please, the same time, no, it's going to be by 8 p.m. So do well to join the section to leverage what you've learned today. Yeah. You. All right. Oh, Rose, I have a question. All right. Rose, can you speak?
Good
I
evening,
want to.
everyone. I don't have a question actually. I just want to give a shout out to the speaker. I learned a lot personally, things that I didn't. I was just opening my mouth. Wow, really? Is that how it happened underneath the hood? Thank you so much for this section. It was really amazing. Well done. Thank you,
You're
Gloria.
welcome.
You can continue.
All right. Florence, can you can speak?
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is to our moderator. Do we need to register specially for the event on Saturday?
Okay, yeah, there's a link for that, so it's free. If you're on a community, you should have access to that link. But if you're not, you can find it on our LinkedIn page as well.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to draw. So Florence, are you okay with that, or do you want me to send you the link to the WhatsApp group?
I'm 100% fine with that. 100%. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. So we're gonna call it a night here. We're gonna draw the curtain tonight. Thank you everyone for your patience. Thank you for those that won't join 3 minutes before wrapping up. Thank you for joining. We appreciate. Thank you, Awoniyi. That was wonderful. Thank you. I owe you. I owe you. Yeah. Thank you very much, and good night. Do enjoy the rest of your night. Good night, everyone.
Good night.